We work sorry, let me just try to reorder the thoughts.
And look, it's clear he's never going to be mentioned in the same breath as Winston Churchill, JFK, John Diefenbaker.
We choose to go to the moon.
We shall fight in the field. We shall never surrender.
Water bottles out of when we have water bottles out of a plastic.
But in some ways, he's actually incredibly brilliant with words and language. As much as it hurts sometimes to pay the guy a compliment, I have to acknowledge that what he has done with the English language to hide the terrible policies that he's imposing on Canadians on some level is actually kind of genius. Let's go through just a few examples of how Justin Trudeau tries to hide terrible policies behind fancy language.
Again, how much money total have your brother, mother, and spouse received from this organization?
That information has been publicly shared, but I will highlight.
Well, then tell me what it is.
Throughout her life,
The dollar figure, Prime Minister.
various ways, and is
How
proud
much?
of the work that she's done, and I'm proud of her
How
as well.
much?
And quite
You don't
frankly,
know how much your family has received from this organization, which you tried to give $500 million. Really?
While Justin Trudeau might be particularly good at it, this is not unique to him. The left does this all the time, whether it's outright lies or doublespeak or manipulating language and changing meanings of words, titles and phrases to hide the true meanings of their policy. You can find examples of this all the way back in the Soviet Union when the commissars would tell people that all the restrictions on their freedom was to keep them safe. Or like in North Korea, where literally people are told that every good thing in their life comes from the great leader. Of course, Justin Trudeau has to use this because the results of his policies are so catastrophic that if he was honest about what he was doing, people wouldn't stand for it. One of the most outrageous examples of Justin Trudeau using this tactic is on criminal justice, because there's a whole host of terms that the left has to hide the true nature of what they believe in from common sense people. Like conditional sentencing. Conditional sentencing just means house arrest. It just means instead of going to jail, someone who's committed a violent assault or stolen something get to spend their sentence in the luxury of their own home. Community-based sentencing is another one of these terms. Non-custodial sentencing. The principle of least restraint. That's the one that actually directs correctional officials to move dangerous criminals into lower security prisons. It's also the reason why one killer in British Columbia was able to just simply walk away from the facility that he was in because he wasn't in a maximum security prison.
A man accused of killing a Vancouver Island man in his home after walking away from a minimum security prison could soon learn his fate.
If Justin Trudeau was honest, if he really believed that Canadians supported his radical, wacko approach to criminal justice, why didn't he just stand in front of a podium? Can you imagine Justin Trudeau saying this? Can you imagine Justin Trudeau saying, from now on, dangerous and repeat offenders will be released back on the streets so they can reoffend? Of course you wouldn't vote for that. Nobody would. So that's why he hides it behind this made-up phrase, this principle of restraint. It's not obvious what that means. You have to be involved in the legal profession to even know what he's talking about. So he puts this barrier between you, the voter, and the policy that he's enacting to hide the true consequences of what he's going to do to our country.
One man in Victoria is keeping police very busy this week. He's been arrested 3 days in a row in connection to a carjacking, attempted vehicle thefts, and a home invasion.
Trudeau's new policy also includes major changes to Canada's bail system. Under the new rules, dangerous and repeat offenders are often let right back out onto the street the very same day they're arrested.
This is the reason why crime is spiking all across the country. It's not complicated. When Justin Trudeau started letting dangerous and repeat offenders back out on the street on the very day they were arrested in the first place, what happened? Crime exploded. That's why there's chaos in our streets in almost every community from coast to coast. Probably the best example of Justin Trudeau using a term that means the exact opposite of what his policy is all about is his drug policy. You see, if Justin Trudeau were to have run in the last election promising to make hard drugs like crack, meth, and heroin legal to use in public spaces like bus stops and hospitals. Most Canadians would have absolutely rejected it. So he didn't say that's what he was going to do. Instead, he started talking about quote-unquote safe supply. Now, what safe supply actually means is taxpayer-funded hard drugs being given away, maintaining people on their addictions. In British Columbia, he partnered with the province and decriminalized the use of hard drugs in public places. What does that mean? It means it was now legal to consume these dangerous drugs like meth, heroin, and crack in public places around other people. Justin Trudeau uses this kind of language because he wants you to believe that this policy will lead to fewer overdose deaths, less drugs being consumed in our society. In reality, the exact opposite has happened. Even so far as nurses working in hospitals where these dangerous drugs are being consumed in the waiting rooms and ER wards are being advised not to breastfeed their babies. And police forces reporting that they're finding government paid for narcotics being found when they seize massive supplies of drugs when they bust up some of these drug dealers.
London police are speaking out about the diversion of drugs happening in this community.
Diverted safe supply is being resold into our community. It's being trafficked into other communities, and it is being used as currency in exchange for fentanyl, fueling the drug trade.
Police revealed data today that indicated the number of safe supply prescription tablets seized has significantly increased in the last 5 years.
If Justin Trudeau stood in front of a podium and was actually honest with Canadians and said that he was going to make it legal for drug users to consume their dangerous drugs in front of children, in the presence of nurses and other vulnerable Canadians, if he told Canadians that he was going to use your tax dollars to give away powerful opioids, you might not support it. So he dresses it up with all this fancy language to hide the true nature of what he's doing. There is nothing safe about heroin, crack, and meth. There is nothing safe about Justin Trudeau's drug policies.
Working with a jurisdiction that wanted to do it was priority for us. And of course, we've already heard cities like Toronto and Edmonton interested in taking this on as well.
Period. Why do they do this? Why does it seem like every big government political party across the globe uses these tactics so much? Well, Justin Trudeau might be particularly good at it. It's nothing new. It's what big government anti-freedom political parties use as a tactic the whole world over throughout history, primarily by communist countries who deliberately lie about their policy or their project or a new restriction on someone's freedom. For example, the Berlin Wall. We all know it as the wall that prevented people suffering under communism from escaping into the wonderful society of free market capitalism and democracy in West Berlin. But that's not what the communists called it. They told the people of East Berlin that this was a wall that would protect them. This was called the anti-fascist wall. It was sold to the people of East Berlin as a way to prevent an enemy from coming inside the walls. The term they applied for it was the exact opposite of what it actually was. It was sold to the people of East Berlin as a way to keep enemies out, when in reality, it kept the people in. Or we could look at the Great Leap Forward. There's nothing great about it. It was a horrific experience that the government imposed on the people that led to tens of millions of people literally starving to death. A greater number than the total dead in world wars. This is a classic tactic of the left to change the nature of the terminology so it sounds less negative and more positive. But it is completely dishonest. You will hear this from practically every Marxist-inspired big government promoter politician in any country around the world. It goes a little something like this. We're just asking some people to pay a little bit more,
While we're asking the wealthiest Canadians to pay a little bit more.
We could ask every Canadian to pay their fair share.
And we just saw this recently in Canada, where Justin Trudeau claimed that only the wealthy would be asked to pay a little bit more. Now that has been completely debunked. Experts across the board have demonstrated how middle-class Canadians will be paying more under this new tax hike. The mechanic who owns his own business, the farmer, the entrepreneur will all pay more thanks to Justin Trudeau's tax hikes. But let's look at that line. Asking to pay a little bit more. Are they really asking? If I ask my neighbor if I can have his lawnmower, he can always say no. But when the government sets a tax, there's no choice, because the actions of the government are all backed up by that fundamental principle, the thing that separates government from every other institution in our life is the monopoly on force. That means that at the end of the day, whether it's a parking ticket, a tax hike, or a rule or regulation, at some point, if you don't comply, the government will send somebody with a gun and force you to do it or put you in jail for refusing. So nobody's asking anybody. But again, there's this flowery, warm language, like we're just asking some people to pay a little bit more. This sounds so reasonable, right? Like you could imagine yourself at a family gathering and you say, we're just asking some people to chip in a little bit more for supper, or you're involved in a volunteer organization and we're asking some people to stay a little bit late to help clean up. That's not what's happening. Justin Trudeau is asking no one. He's telling you, he's forcing so many Canadians who have worked so hard to build a business, to hire some people in their community, or to put money away into savings, to fork over more of it so that he can spend it. So all of this, all these fancy terms and double speak and invented language, it all is done for a very specific reason: to confuse the people, to distract and to hide the true nature of their policies so that the people don't outright reject it. And that's why we have to stay ever vigilant with Trudeau, because he's so good at it. It's one of the few things he's actually good at. When politicians ask for your vote, they're offering you a deal. You vote for them, and in exchange, you get the policies that they have promised. And that's why we use common sense terms, easy to understand language, like axing the tax. We are going to get rid of the carbon tax. We're going to stop the crime. We're going to take dangerous criminals who have shown that they will reoffend and keep them away from innocent Canadians for longer periods of time. And we're going to build the homes. We're going to incentivize local communities to unlock the power of the free market and take away the barriers, fire the gatekeepers so that builders can build. We're using common sense terms for our common sense policies. It's time for a common sense government.